Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week we are back on my new project car for the channel, which is my Maserati 222 SE. All right, guys, welcome back. And if you were watching, I previously revealed my new project car for the channel, which is this. This is my 1991 Maserati BiTurbo 222 SE. If you missed it, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up on that review video and my reasons for buying this car. And like always, do those things, like and subscribe, and particularly comment on the videos. That really does help out the algorithm. So overall, the reaction to my my new project car was very good. As I mentioned, my plan with this car is to do some engine upgrade. I'm still on the fence about what I'm going to do with this. I was under the impression the BiTurbos were unreliable, and that is true, particularly for the early cars. This being a later car, the early cars were a 2-litre V6. This is a 2.8-litre V6, which has been reasonably well sorted. There are electrical issues and stuff like that. Most of this issue with this car is electrical things, and that is something that I'm going to tackle in the future. But one of the big things is I put up this render. It was a AI-generated render of my plan for this, which is to make a really cool resto mod shooting brake. So some of you might not understand what a shooting brake is. It's not just a wagon. A shooting brake is a 2-door wagon. Like the Z3 Clown Shoe and things like that. Like it's a very small subsect of cars. So I'm not adding extra doors, but I am going to add a hatch on the back, hopefully, and that is the plans for this car. Wide body, I'm still deciding on what I'm doing yet, and obviously I've got to change these ugly wheels out and things like that. That's all to come later. But for now, I have not looked at this car at all. It has not been serviced probably for a while, and I just need to go through and just get up in the air and see what I'm dealing with. All right, and for those who missed it, this is the quite questionable interior for the BiTurbo that I received. Like I mentioned before, this centre looks like it's the original leather, whereas these bolsters have been replaced, and it does look like vinyl to me. I'll find out because they're not going to stay that way anyway. But besides that, it's a pretty cool car. The speedo and tacho don't work properly, and they're probably going to be changed. But there may be new dashes and things to go into this anyway, so that's something I can look at later. One of the things I did mention was that I didn't believe that this seat had any adjustment for the tilt. It has this lever on the side that lets you tilt it forward so you can get into the back, but I believe that was fixed. There is an electronic tilting mechanism on this that I could not find. And even after they told me, I thought, no, this car doesn't have it. There is nothing down here. It is actually a button that you have to go all the way down under and near the center console, and right underneath, there is a button here that does the tilt of the seats. But it is not in a spot you would ever normally look for a button. So, yeah, that's not right. And oh, there we go. Yes, I can see actually this is actually vinyl. I don't believe that is leather. So yes, that is not normally where you would look for a button for tilting the seats. All right, so you guys are looking at this underneath here for the first time, as am I, and overall I'm not unhappy with how this looks. It's reasonably dry. Looks like some idiots have tried to jack the car up in the wrong spot before. There are actually jacking points over here, so that has done that. This has been scraped quite a bit, the exhaust at the front here, but still seems to be in one piece. I don't believe that there is any exhaust leaks at this stage. The back has an aftermarket exhaust that doesn't sound too bad at low revs, but it's it's a little bit loud up the top of the range. I wasn't actually sure before I bought this car whether this was a standard type gearbox or a transaxle, and this is actually a pretty standard type of gearbox. In the center, it actually looks like quite a small box, so that may be a little bit of an issue if I want to go something a lot bigger, because I mean this looks smaller than the box I've got in the Ferrari. Surprisingly, very few leaks. The original spare wheel, so this is the type of wheels that it would have had on the car. Obviously, yeah, not the same as what is on it now. So I was told the car was serviced just before I bought it, but I like to check these things out for myself. Well, that actually looks quite clean. That looks very clean. I'm unhappy with that. That looks very, very clean. But I'm not happy. I'm just going to change it anyway. So I did do my research beforehand. It took me ages. I was looking everywhere to try and find the fill plug for the gearbox before I drained it. And the service manual is your friend, and you actually need to just fill it up through the dipstick hole. And I'm using the recommended Penrite DX3. All right, so I have gone through and topped up the automatic transmission fluid again. To get it to work properly, I need to actually warm the car up and change it slowly through the gears, and just make sure it cycles, and then check it again when it's about 40 degrees. But I don't want to warm it up right now because I want to change the coolant, because I know at least the overflow tank looks a bit nasty. To me, it just looks like water. It doesn't look like it's actually coolant, so I want to change that out for sure. So it's off with the under tray, and there's a drain plug that's actually quite easy to get to. All right, well, if the transmission fluid was clean, that is definitely not. That is very, very ugly coolant that definitely needed changing. So plug it back up again and then refill it, and I'm using the Penrite red fluid, so there's red, green and blue depending on your purpose, and this car calls for red, so that's what I'm using to top it all up. So on cold startup, Maserati does seem to idle high for the first 10 seconds or so, but it does actually calm down and settles into a nice quiet idle. And you can see here I'm going through and topping up the coolant, just letting it sort of warm up and make sure that it's cycling all the way through and there's no air pockets left in it. Same again with the automatic trans, just making sure that's up to level. Now I'm getting it warm and checking the level as recommended. So those of you who watched the first video will have seen that I mentioned that these wheels, the stud pattern was 5x1 14.3, which is a very common stud pattern. Lots and lots of wheels available for it. And yeah, I think I just used AI told me that on the internet. And AI lies, because from what I gather, I don't think these are 5x1 14.3. I don't even think they're 5x108, which is also a common size. I believe these are 5x106, which I think is this car and only this car. It's not a size that any other car uses. It's a stupid thing. I think the Shamal actually goes to 5x108, which is a much more normal size. I think Fords use 5x108, so they're common sizes, so is Ferrari. But these are not, I don't think, and I'm pretty sure they're not, because I can see on these wheels that these have been machined, I think, to make these wheels fit. I can see, at first I thought people were just really bad with a rattle gun and scratch them up. But it looks like they've actually machined probably some 5x108 ugly wheels to fit. So we're going to pull them off and double check. And also, this particular wheel has been scrubbing, and we're going to have a look at that too. Now pulling the wheels off, I also realised these have those stupid wheel bolts, not studs that you just put wheel nuts onto. I hate that so much, it's so dumb. So now the wheel's off, I start measuring to confirm the PCD of these wheels. Well, that confirmed it. I did a quick Googling to find out an easy way to work out the stud pattern of a 5-stud wheel hub, and basically you need to measure from the center of one hole to the next hole. So I measured from the outside of both neighboring holes, at 74.5 roughly, and it's roughly 12.3 millimeters across. So I take that off, and that will get me the center to the center of each hole, which ended up being 62.2, around about. And if you multiply that by 1.701, that will give you the PCD, and in which my case it came up as 105.8, which is 106. So it's 5 by 106, which is means I'm going to have to get custom wheels for this thing, because there's not going to be off-the-shelf wheels that are going to be easy to fit. Yay! All right, so as far as rubbing goes, I can see in here straight away what the issue is. You can see this lip is coming down here. It's also rubbing over here a little bit. That is something I think a little persuading will fix. So let's get out the persuader and persuade it not to rub anymore. So the big issue is that the wheels I have on this car at the moment are too far inset, and they're rubbing on the inside of the wheel arch. They need to actually have a slightly larger offset so that they stick out a bit further, and that would also make them look better, although there's not much saving these wheels, and they will go as soon as I have some alternatives to put onto them. But for now, that's what I have, so let's put them back on again and start digging into the engine bay. All right, next thing is I went to actually get this aircon regas because the aircon doesn't work. And the guy noticed, I'm not sure if the camera is going to pick it up down here, but you can see in the center shot that air conditioning pipe is cracked all the way through. And that pipe goes from under the battery all the way around the back of the engine and over to this side down over here. So I need to remove that pipe so I can make a new one. To be honest, I haven't actually checked to see if Maserati has a factory replacement for this pipe, but for me, making a hose is just easier. That's one of the things I've found with this car compared to my other projects, is there's very little information about them because they weren't as popular as my other cars. All right, AC pipe came out. There was the piece that was already broken, and then I actually cut it. It was just easier than pulling every single thing out. Basically, all I need is this to get a rough length. I'm going to make a hose instead of a solid pipe to replace this, just so that I can easily replace it. So I'll get this made up, and then we should hopefully get aircon back. Yay! Now, another thing that is worrying me, and it's the first probably of many electrical issues that there will be with the Maz. This indicator at the rear doesn't seem to come on for the first 5 or 10 minutes when you're driving the car. I get the fast flashing indicator, and then later it warms up and it comes on. So I pulled it out. I did actually change the globe. The globe obviously does work because, as I said, after it warms up, it works. And I just swapped the globe out and it's still not working. So it's not a globe thing. So I'm just going to test and see if we're getting power and that sort of thing when I first start up, and see if we can try and diagnose the problem. So I got in there with my power probe, and it looks like the positive side is coming through and is actually giving power to the globe. I think it was the negative connection to the body of the car that was a little bit dodgy. So I've just changed this tab, and it looks like it's going to connect okay. We'll see how it goes over the next little bit, but at least I have a rough idea of why it wasn't performing. And hopefully now it does. Hopefully all of the electrical issues are as easy to fix as this one. All right, and the last thing I need to check out is the stereo has never worked in the Maz. So I removed the glove box and attacked the fuse panel, and I found that I actually had a blown fuse, and now we're going to check the stereo again and see if we can actually get it working. All right, let's have a look-see. Hey! We have power! All right, we have a working stereo. Yes! I am slightly disappointed, though, that it's red and not the iconic Alpine green. All right. We have a stereo that works. It was just a blown fuse, which is all I was hoping it would be. So one thing I don't think that has been happening is I don't think the antenna has been going up. So we need to check the electric antenna because I know it has one. Let's go and see how that goes. I find a whole mess in the back and it doesn't look like this is the original antenna. All right, so the electric antenna wasn't working. I pulled this all apart and it was a total dog's breakfast. You can see all this crazy wiring here and the antenna was not working. And I was ready to go and buy another one. This looks like it's actually an aftermarket one anyway. I very much doubt that this setup is factory, although who knows. But this black wire and this red wire, for some reason, the red wire was plugged into the black and the black was plugged into the red. And yeah, and I checked the polarity and stuff, swapped them around. And now, if I turn the car on, and we have an antenna that goes up. And if I turn the car off, antenna goes back down. So we fixed another problem. Easy. Although it still sits a bit high. All right, so while I was tackling this, obviously there is a lot of wiring that I need to get into and sort out. But I did find that there is, as part of this mess, on this stereo system, there were these wires here, and there's a little motor in the back here that this unit, when you open and close it, slides the stereo forwards and backwards. And in the back, there is actually, when you pressed this dead button here, and it doesn't look like this was factory, it looks like this was added afterwards, it actually wound this little cam and it locks into this slot here and locks the case so you can't open and get the stereo out. Yeah, interesting sort of security feature that I definitely don't need anymore because car stereo theft is not really a thing anymore. But yeah, very, very interesting little feature. This is now basically all working the way it should. So I'm going to assemble it all again and fingers crossed we can leave it that way. All right, just some of those little things that I have improved now are really going to elevate the experience of driving the Maserati. Aircon is definitely coming as soon as I can get into the aircon shop in the new year. I've already put probably only 1,000 Ks or so on this car, maybe if even that. But I really enjoy it. I think it's got a nice amount of power. Like it's good. I think in a manual it'd be so much better. In the auto, it's a slush box. So much lag. It's not exciting. But I'm still tossing up. I do have plans to do a full engine conversion, but the more I've looked into it, that these engines are not actually as unreliable as I first thought. The earlier 2-litre ones are much less reliable. These 2.8 litres are a Maserati refined a lot of things. They would have been going for 10 years or so on this body shape by this time, or close to that. So they had sorted out a lot of the issues. I don't know whether I feel like I need to do it. Like I can manual convert it. I can convert the ECU over to a modern ECU and things like that to get rid of a lot of the electrical issues and have e-throttle and cruise control and things like that. Cruise control is one thing that I'm surprised this car does not have, but after the seat issue, who knows? But yeah, I am enjoying the fact that I get to drive this before I tackle it as a project. There's still a while away. There's still lots of other things to do. Frankenhall to finish, and Harry, my 911, needs a lot of work as well. So there are things to do before we tear this down, but I thought I'd bring you along for the ride. So let me know if you're enjoying this. Do all the things as usual. Like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you on the next one. See you guys.